She was just a maid. She hardly spoke to anyone. She never sat down while others ate. Most people barely noticed she was there. But one day, a billionaire caught her staring into the refrigerator again and again. What happened next shocked everyone. Stay until the end to discover why she kept checking that fridge, and what happened when the truth finally came to light. This is one of those stories that reminds us how a single act of kindness can change a life forever. If you believe kindness still matters, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more heartwarming stories. The Winters Mansion stood proudly in the heart of Chicago, a towering masterpiece of glass and steel that symbolized wealth, power, and success. Its owner, Alexander Winters, was a billionaire known for his cold personality and strict discipline. In the business world, he was respected. In his personal life, he was feared. He had little patience for excuses, even less for mistakes, and almost no tolerance for emotions. The staff had a nickname for him, Mr. Freeze, not only because of his last name but because of the way he seemed to freeze out every feeling. Among the many employees who worked inside the massive mansion was a young maid named Rosa. She was 24 years old and had been working there for only 4 months. Quiet, soft-spoken, almost invisible, Rosa wore the same worn uniform every day. It had been carefully patched in several places. Her shoes were old with cracks near the soles. Yet she never complained. She never arrived late. She never asked for special treatment. She simply worked. But recently Alexander had noticed something strange. Something that irritated him. Rosa kept checking the refrigerator, again and again. Sometimes early in the morning, sometimes after cleaning, sometimes just before leaving for the day. She would quietly walk over, open the refrigerator door, carefully look through the shelves, then close it again. She never took anything. She never touched the food. But her eyes always lingered on the containers and expiration dates. It made no sense. One afternoon, Alexander returned home earlier than expected after a frustrating business meeting. A major deal had fallen apart, and his mood was worse than usual. As he walked through the kitchen hallway, something caught his attention. There she was, once again, standing in front of the open refrigerator, staring. His patience snapped. "What are you doing?" he barked. Rosa jumped in shock and immediately shut the refrigerator door. Her face turned pale. I was just..." "You were just what?" Alexander interrupted sharply. "Spying? Looking for leftovers? Trying to steal something?" "No, sir," Rosa said nervously. "I was only..." "Enough." His voice echoed through the kitchen. "You're fired." The room fell silent. Rosa stared at him, unable to speak. "Pack your things and leave," he continued. "I don't need a thief or someone snooping around my house." Several employees looked on quietly. No one said a word. Tears filled Rosa's eyes. But she didn't argue. She didn't beg. She didn't defend herself. She simply nodded. A few hours later, she gathered her belongings and left the mansion. By nightfall she was gone. Alexander tried to return to his normal routine. But something about the situation stayed in the back of his mind. It wasn't guilt. At least not yet. It was curiosity. Why hadn't she defended herself? Why had she remained silent? 3 days later he got his answer. Mrs. Carter, the mansion's longtime housekeeper, approached him carefully. "Sir, if I may say something." Alexander looked up. "What is it, Carter?" She hesitated. "It's about Rosa." Alexander frowned. "What about her?" Mrs. Carter took a deep breath. "She wasn't stealing, sir." Alexander's expression hardened. "I saw her standing there every day." "I know," Carter replied softly. "But she wasn't looking for food for herself." Alexander said nothing. "She was checking expiration dates." "Why?" The housekeeper lowered her eyes. "Because she used to take the food that was going to be thrown away." Alexander folded his arms. "And she was feeding children." For a moment he simply stared at her. "Children?" Mrs. Carter nodded. 3 children in her apartment building. She explained that Rosa lived in a poor neighborhood where several families struggled to survive. The children had no mothers, and their fathers were rarely sober enough to care for them. Whenever food in the mansion was about to be discarded, Rosa would quietly take it home. Not for herself. For them. She always said that bread close to expiration was still better than an empty stomach. Alexander felt the room grow strangely quiet. Mrs. Carter continued. Last week she used part of her salary to buy medicine for one of the children. She had a fever herself, but she still came to work because she was afraid of losing her job. Alexander didn't know what to say. For the first time in years, he felt something he wasn't used to feeling. Shame. That night, he stood alone in front of the refrigerator. The same refrigerator he had seen Rosa checking countless times. But now he wasn't looking at food. He was looking at the truth. A woman with almost nothing had been feeding hungry children. Meanwhile, he had more money than he could spend in several lifetimes. And he had fired her without even listening. He remembered the fear in her eyes, the trembling in her voice, the silence. Perhaps she never defended herself because she believed nobody would listen. Nobody would believe a poor maid. For days after losing her job, Rosa sat inside her tiny apartment. The walls were cracked. The heater barely worked. The elevator in the building had been broken for months. But it was home. She had only $12 left. To make sure the children could eat, she had been skipping meals herself. That evening there was a knock on the door. Rosa assumed it was the landlord asking for rent. But when she opened the door she froze. Standing there was Alexander Winters. He wore a black coat and carried 2 large grocery bags. For a moment neither of them spoke. "I need to talk to you," he finally said. Rosa stepped aside. Alexander entered and placed the bags on the small table. Fresh groceries, bread, medicine, baby formula. Enough supplies for several weeks. He looked at her. "I misjudged you." Rosa remained silent. "I accused you." His voice softened. "I humiliated you." He paused. "And I was wrong." Tears filled Rosa's eyes. Alexander took a slow breath. "Mrs. Carter told me everything." He glanced around the small apartment. "I didn't understand before." Then he looked back at her. "I'm not here just to apologize." He reached into his coat pocket and handed her an envelope. "I have an offer for you." Rosa carefully opened it. Inside was a scholarship proposal. Full tuition, books, living expenses, everything covered. "I want to sponsor your education through my company's community program," Alexander said. "You have the kind of heart this world needs." Rosa stared at the papers in disbelief. "You'll be able to study whatever you choose. And when you graduate, there will be a place for you in our nonprofit organization helping families who are struggling." Her voice trembled. "Why?" For the first time Alexander smiled. A small genuine smile. "My mother cleaned houses for a living." Rosa looked up. "She passed away when I was 12. His eyes softened. "No one helped her. No one believed in her." He paused. "And when I heard your story, I saw a part of her in you." For a moment neither of them spoke. Then Alexander added quietly, "Maybe I've spent too many years making money and not enough years helping people." Rosa wiped away her tears. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he replied. "Just don't lose that heart of yours." A week later Rosa's life began to change. She returned, not as a maid but as a student. Inspired by her story, Alexander launched a food donation program that redirected surplus food to shelters and struggling families instead of garbage bins. The children Rosa had been helping receive support and opportunities they had never imagined. And 3 years later, after earning her degree in community development, Rosa became the director of the very program that had started because of her compassion. People often say money makes the world go around. But kindness is what makes the journey meaningful. Sometimes the quietest people carry the most powerful stories. Rosa never asked for recognition. She never demanded sympathy. She simply chose kindness when nobody was watching. And in doing so, she changed a billionaire's heart forever. If this story touched you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more emotional stories that remind us all that even in the coldest world, a warm heart can still change everything.